Welcome, everyone, to our first Culture and Diversity conversational panel of this professional learning community group. I'm Rosabel, founder of this wonderful group of professionals that work together to bring culture and value diversity in our classes. Today, we are pleased to have with us our friend, Dr. Lori Langer De Ramirez. Dr. Lori Langer De Ramirez began her career as a teacher of Spanish, French, and ESL. She holds a master's degree in applied linguistics and a doctorate in curriculum and teaching from Teacher College, Columbia University. She's currently the director of World and Classical Language and Global Language Initiative at the Dalton School in New York City. Lori is the author of books, texts, and articles about language teaching and learning and multicultural education. She presents workshops at local, regional, and national conferences and works with teachers in school through the U.S. and around the world. Her website, miscositas.com, offers free materials for teaching Chinese, English, French, and Spanish. So, Dr. Lori Langer De Ramirez, we feel honored and privileged with your presence here today. Thank you for taking this time out of your busy schedule and to share with our teachers and enlightening us with your knowledge.
Thank you so much, Rosa. It's so kind of you to have me and invite me and to include me in this professional learning group. I'm thrilled to be here. I wish I could see you all, but I thank you all for being here, for taking your time to really spend the time to grow as professionals and to keep learning. And it's just exciting. Anytime I get to be connected to other language teachers, I always find it a great opportunity. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. But so first, can you please share a little bit more about you? Who is Dr. Lori Langer De Ramirez?
Oh, this is a complicated question, but that's a good question. I'll give you a little background about how I grew up, and it might give you insights into why I do what I do and why I'm passionate about teaching and learning languages. I grew up in a house with a teacher for a mom. My mom was what was called in New York City at the time a Common Branches teacher. Common Branches is kind of a gen ed teacher. She was a K through 5 teacher, absolutely loved kindergarten, and liked the kids less as they grew older. So she was just thrilled with the little ones. And so I grew up around papers and notebooks and pens and all of the ephemera of teaching. My mom would come home with big stacks of things to grade, and I remember those double-sided pens. One side was red and one side was blue, and she used to everything was fascinating to me. It was just something incredible. So I guess it was inevitable that I would want to be a teacher. I started playing teacher at a very young age. It was all, and I loved school. I just absolutely loved school in all of its forms. It wasn't until around, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying also, and I'm leaving what you're saying, how you grew up and being a sort of a teacher.
Yeah, a lot of folks I've spoken to who have parents who are teachers kind of get that love for it. When I was in 7th grade, though, was the first opportunity I had to study Spanish. It was first day of 7th grade Spanish. I knew exactly that that's what I would be doing. So I walked into a room with a teacher who was kind of nutty. He would stand on desks. He would sing songs. He would, throw balls at us and play games. He was just an incredibly engaging teacher. And I instantly connected that interest in that language with teaching. And I just feel very lucky that from a very young age, I've been focused on language teaching. Fast forward to my adult life, I, went to school, studied Spanish in college, and French and German, but ultimately ended up with Spanish. And I met my husband through the language. I had a mutual friend, and the friend said to me, "Hey, come here. You speak that Spanish, right? That's what you're studying. I think that guy over there speaks Spanish." So, any good language learner, we're always looking for somebody to communicate with, a conversation partner. And I said, "Oh, come here. Let's speak." And, the rest is history. So my husband is from Colombia. So we speak the language at home. We speak Spanish, English, and Spanglish, as you can imagine. And we have one son who has been raised in this multilingual household, who speaks pretty well, and is continuing to study even today. He's in college and he's taking an advanced lit class. So he's got a very proud mama. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me and kind of some of the background that feeds into my passion for what I do on a daily basis. I think we have the best job in the world. And I'm really, thrilled to be able to work with kids and turn them on to the love of languages like it has so benefited me in my life.
Awesome. And that takes me straight to my next question, because I was about to ask you where you're exactly from. I thought you was from Colombia, but you say it's your husband from Colombia? Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I have been speaking Spanish with you, and your Spanish is real good. So I thought she was from Colombia, and I thought she was from Colombia. She got me on that one. So you are American, but you married with your husband is from Colombia, so you have adopted our culture, our Hispanic culture. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, absolutely. I grew up as a monolingual. My family is monolingual. I had no exposure to other languages at home. I just happened to really love Spanish and decided that would be my focus. So I studied all throughout college. My husband would tell you that he taught me all the Spanish that I know, but that is not true because I spoke Spanish long before I met him, but he likes to take credit for all of my Spanish. He can take credit for my accent, though, because as a non-native speaker, we tend to adopt the accent of the teacher of the time, right? Mm-hmm. So throughout my career as a student, I've had an Argentinian teacher, and then I started having a little more, yo me llamo in my accent, and that came out. Then I went to Spain and studied in Asturias. And when I came home from Spain, I had a pure Castilian accent. That's when I met my husband, and he thought it was hysterical because he heard that accent coming out of my mouth and he thought it was really funny sounding. But anyway, 30 years later, my accent is fairly Colombian influenced.
Yeah, it's Colombian.
Yeah, but you're right. I have, I don't know if I would say I've adopted the culture, but I am passionate about Colombia. I think there are times that I love it more than even my husband. I love the country. I love the people. I love the food. And I love the culture. And one of my kind of extra passions in teaching is bringing Colombia to my students, partially to offset what I think is an incredibly negative image of Colombia, especially in the United States, given shows like Narcos and all sorts of other. There's the I don't know if you've seen the film La Colombiana, which is also, they're all about what I don't relate to as Colombia. So my goal in working with my students is bringing culture in as real a way as possible, but always acknowledging that I am not Latina. I don't profess to be, but I do absolutely love the culture and the language. So I try to bring that to my students.
And I appreciate that a lot, how you have adopted this culture to your personal life and also into your classes. So how did you contribute at your professional level with world language teacher to integrate cultures and diversity in the curriculum in their classes? Because you say that you bring Colombia into your classes, but how do you contribute? Because you have a huge curriculum of what you're doing with teachers and for teachers in world languages.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you. So I, of course, focus on my students first. And again, my goal is to balance that negative image and to bring Colombia and to really make it come alive for students in the classroom. But I'm also really cautious and respectful of that. I don't want to just bring my version of Colombia or my lens of Colombia. So I'm always very cautious to, whenever I create materials, to triangulate. So I'll create something, I'll show it to my husband in Colombia. So I try to share it with a few other people. So that I know that I'm not just kind of, interpreting things through my own lens. The same goes for diversity. I think it's so crucial for us to have conversations with our colleagues, with people from the cultures that we're sharing with students. And so I'm always looking for topics and themes that I can bring into our classroom that are compelling to students, but that also provide them with a lens through which to view other cultures and other identities. So, for example, right now in my own work with teachers and with my students, I'm looking for ways to address racial topics and themes in our classes. And that's not just, I teach middle school right now, but that's not just high school and middle school. I'm talking about on the elementary level in Spanish as well. There are wonderful folk tales and picture books and poems and music and films that you could adapt for use with younger children too. It doesn't have to be a heavy, deep conversation about racial injustice or socioeconomic inequities. It could be something very, very simple. And we've had really great success with beautiful picture books coming out of Latin America that bring these issues to the fore with students. I work with teachers, all as you mentioned earlier within that lovely introduction, with teachers around the world to design thematic units that are culturally centered so that culture becomes an integral part of everything we do, not just an add-on, not just something that is kind of thrown in there at the end, but that it's actually at the forefront of every lesson that we create for students.
Yes, and in special, I like the ones that is called Cuenta Colombia, which this is the thematic unit that you have, a curriculum unit about Colombian folklore. And this unit, can you tell us a little bit about that, and also the material about cultural diversity that goes integrating into this thematic, in particular this one that I like.
Yeah, thank you. I like it too. That actually, so my entire website is sprang from my dissertation work. Actually, I was fascinated, am still fascinated with folklore and folktales, and I decided that my thesis would be around 3 thematic units that I designed based on 3 folktales from Latin America that came from the oral tradition of 3 different countries. So. I traveled to Argentina, Mexico, and Colombia, interviewed people, gathered their stories from their points of view, brought them back to the United States, and then created thematic units and teaching materials with which to teach those folktales to my students. So some of the stories in the Cuenta Colombia unit come from traveling around Colombia and walking up to people on the street and saying, "Hey, I'm a teacher from the U.S. Do you have any stories?" I highly recommend this, by the way, those of us who travel to different countries, either our home countries or countries that we're visiting. Folks tend to be really responsive and respectful of teachers. And if you just forefront and say, "Hey, I'm a teacher. Do you have any stories?" I have brought back recordings and notes and videos of people from around the world that are just precious in the classroom. So these particular stories, the great thing about folktales is that they bring diversity straight out through their story. It's not a story about diversity, but rather the people in the stories represent diverse ethnicities, diverse races, different genders, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so folktales in particular are really fantastic for accessing diversity in an organic way. Not, as I said earlier, in a heavy way, in a way that sometimes kids don't fully absorb. But when you have a story, it really opens up conversation for students and provides that cultural connection for them.
Exactly, which is what we're looking for, how to integrate culture in our classes in a very, like you say, organic way. No, so many grammars and stuff, but something that the students really enjoy. I like to work with them in real life scenarios where they really see stuff that are going on right now. And that way they are more engaged in classes, right?
Absolutely.
And then guys, members, Dr. Ramirez also have resources in other language available for all other world language teachers. She have in French, Mandarin, Chinese, English for ESL, EAL, also passwords collections in Arabic, Chinese, English, French, German, Italian, Russian, and Spanish. That I'm good with the list.
You did really well.
So wonderful. So yes, and then in this group we got also teachers from other other languages as well. So this
Great.
collection will help them a lot. And
Yeah. So a
really
note about the
appreciate.
passwords. Sorry, Rosa.
How is that password?
Yeah, the passwords are really interesting. So this is not a concept that I designed or put forward. This comes from a fantastic book by Helena Curtin and Carol Ann Pessola. It's called Languages and Learners Making the Match. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't already seen it, I recommend it to teachers of all languages and levels. But they talked about passwords as being really helpful for students in the classroom. We want to maintain the target language in the classroom. And so a password is essentially just a sign that has phrases that are helpful for kids in the classroom. For example, puedo ir al baño, right? Or je ne comprends pas, right? I don't understand. I need a pencil. What page are we on? Can I go to the nurse? Like a whole list of them. So I have the collection has around 50 different words or phrases. And what I've done is I've illustrated them really badly. So don't expect beautiful images, but it does the trick. Anyway, so I have these collections. Each page is a different password. At the beginning of the year, I talk to my students. I show them all 50 and I say, okay, pick 15 or pick 20, depending on how big the room is. They pick the ones that they think are useful. Some kids go home and color them in, make them pretty, and then I put them around the room. And that way, when students are trying to maintain the target language and they don't want to break into English, they say, oh, I think that poster is around, and they start looking around the room, and then they find it and they go, puedo ir al baño? Right? In case they forget it. So super simple, very easy concept. And I've been very lucky in working in schools around the world to have colleagues and friends who have helped me translate into a ton of different languages. So if there's anyone on this call who has a language that I don't have already, by all means, reach out. And I would love help.
Yes, anyone here today have a class. I think we have his old Spanish teachers right here right now.
Okay, good.
But if you know anyone, because we have two Chinese teachers on the group, and I know they will be interested in it. And Arabic, he is actually a language translator for adults, but he also gives classes to adults in Arabic. And he's like, oh, send me any links that you guys have in there. So
well, they're there on the website. You just grab them. They're for free. My motto is sharing is caring. They're there for download. They're in PDF format. You just grab them and use them. I'm happy to have people use them in their classes.
All right. So I want to give an opportunity to our members here if they have any question, any comments, and I will read that to you. We have Richard, you say something. Joy says she loves password.
Great.
And let me see. Richard say Dutch and papiamento.
Ooh, I do not have those languages. So if anyone's interested in helping translate,
yeah. And then Laura say, what's the website? It's miscositas.com, Laura. Miscositas.com. And thank you, Quejao say you're beautiful for sharing this.
So sweet. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Organic culture infused through folklore. I love it, Quejao. ¿Alguna pregunta para Dr. Ramirez o Lori? ¿Algún comentario? Yo estoy leyendo. I'm reading over here. Laura, you have the website? I'm sharing the website here.
Oh, great.
Again, we want everybody go, and also there are some other free resources in there. Okay.
Yeah, I have several thematic units. I have interactive materials, lots of stuff. So
okay, so Quejao is asking, which stories do you students favor?
Oh, that's such a good question. So it depends on the grade. As I mentioned, I'm teaching middle school right now. I tend to always teach middle school. First of all, I'm the department chair, so I usually take whatever's left over. And it tends to be middle school, and I'm always very happy with that because I just love middle school kids. Middle school kids love trickster tales. In French, we call these pourquoi tales. They are stories about characters who are really naughty. and who do, so like the Juan Bo stories are trickster tales, Anansi stories from West Africa are trickster tales. So they tend to like those quite a bit because, again, it's always a kid getting away with something, right? Because they're always doing something naughty but getting away with it. They also like those aren't the pourquoi tales. The etiological tales are pourquoi tales or why stories. So those are stories that tell the origin of something in the real world. In Mexico, for example, there are stories that tell the origin of I hope I say this right, the Popocatépetl. It's the volcanoes. There are two of them, and there's a legend that tells of a warrior and this woman he falls in love with, and ultimately, I won't spoil the story, but the reason why they're there is because that's the warrior and his lover, and they form these volcanoes after they were destroyed, I guess.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Richard, as you made a reference to a book we should all read. What's the name of the book?
Yes. It is called Languages and Learners, Making the Match. Initially, this book was written as a K-8 book for FLES teachers, and now they've expanded it to be K-12, but I have to say I bought it for every single teacher that's joined my faculty because it's a fantastic resource. It's a good blend of theory and practice, which is my favorite combination. So you'll get like the theory behind language acquisition and adolescent psychology and development, but then you'll get ideas and tasks and activities to do that, lead off of the theory. So it's a great book.
Language and Learners.
Languages and Learners, Making the Match.
Making the Match.
Yes.
Okay, and then Heidi say Language and Learners by Curtin.
Yes.
Agree?
Curtin and Tesla. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other question? Any other comment? No, okay, how my spelling is real bad. Is the match? Making the match?
Making the match. M-A-T-C-H. Yes.
Oh, I got it. Yes, it's just like that. Okay. Making the match. Well, I got confused with it's by Curtin. Okay.
Yes.
The story would be great. Joyce says that story would be great to make comparisons with stories from Hawaii. Yes.
With the volcanoes, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are a lot of volcano stories. Yeah.
And then Laura said thoughts on using catacombs in French class with alarming parents.
Worried about alarming parents, like the content of the stories?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And oftentimes in the US, like we used to experience this with the Day of the Dead, right? It was sometimes parents would say like, what's going on? Now after the movie Coco came out, nobody questions the Day of the Dead anymore. It's become very mainstream. But the idea, your question is a good one. I would say if there's any content that you're sharing with students that you feel might cause some discomfort or might be not inappropriate, it might be perceived as, something weird by parents, talk to your supervisor, talk to your administrator, make sure that they know what you're doing, right? So you might say to them, hey, I'm going to use this story about such and such, especially now after COVID, or I shouldn't say after, during COVID, anything about death could be triggering for students. So always make sure that your administrator, your supervisor, your department chair, that they know what you're doing and that they're signing off on it. They're saying, okay, you should do that, because they need to know if anything comes their way, they're not going to be taken by surprise. If it's really challenging, we sometimes do this with like R-rated films in our high school classes. We send a note home to parents, say, hey parents, just letting you know, we're about to do a unit on X, Y, or Z. It involves the following themes. Should you have any questions, reach out. It's not a permission slip. You're not saying, hey parents, say yes or no. You're just saying, here's what it is. We're just letting you know. And that way, if they have your email, they can always, poke around and ask some questions, and you can head off any issues before they happen.
Especially that's pretty good to use like that before it gets to a principal. so you can escalate the problem before it gets there. But Laura says that she still got in trouble with DOD. Laura, so DOD is the Department of Defense, is more likely to be a military. So probably those students have a little bit.
So like I said, just try to get folks involved before that happens, because once again, the administrators tend to dislike anything that catches them off guard, right? As long as we know that something's might be a problem, we've already started thinking about like how to handle it. So always say well in advance, hey, just letting you know, I'm going to do this thing, or I'm going to do the Day of the Dead next week, and that way at least they know that it might be coming. I'm sorry that happened. Awful.
Yeah, and it's not only for the Day of the Dead. There are subjects now like introducing Afro-descendants and stuff. Sometimes get some reactions as well. So open communication, as Heidi say, it will be the best source, the best way to start for any culture that we want to introduce in our classrooms. Do you see what I say? I say Department of Defense, DOD. She say no, Day of the Dead. I changed the whole concept. I'm used to the military thing, like, oh, DOD, Department of Defense. Yeah. No, Day of Dead, Laura. Laura probably they're laughing. Oh my God, Rosa, what you doing? That's great. Well, it's 2 minutes before we close. When we're talking about cafecito cultural, cafecito is something that you drink, enjoy, and it's quickly, correct? So she's laughing at me. So Dr. Ramirez, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being here and sharing with all this amazing information with our group. We're going to continue to have more conversations. I'm trying to do at least once or twice a month in the future. This was our first. And so I want to ask all of the members to please, if you know anyone who have materials to share, you can send me a message and I will get in contact with them. Next month, November, we will have Panamanian culture. We're going to be talking everything about the different cultures that we have in Panama. And some of the members that we got here also will be part of the panel. So I invite you from right now, Dr. Laurie, to come and share with us that day as well.
Fantastic.
So, yes, Heidi, we do need a clarification because I changed the whole system. DOD. It's memorable day there. And Quejao say, mahalo, Dr. Ramirez. Gracias, Rosa. Gracias a todos ustedes. Thank you, everyone. And this is all for today. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Have a great
Thank
day.
You, Rosa.
Adios.
Ciao.
Ciao. Hasta luego.
Adios.
Thank you guys for coming. Heidi, say thank you both. You're welcome.
Thank you.